I can't care anymore. The Game Awards, year after year, have been the most boring, long-winded, ad-friendly slogs I have ever had the displeasure of having to sit through. They bait everyone in with promises of game announcements, but ultimately they just serve to pander to Jeff Keighley's career. Notice what I said there. Jeff Keighley's career. For those not in the know, Jeff Keighley of Dorito Pope fame hosts and operates the two companies behind the Game Awards as well as Summer Games Live. This isn't like the Oscars where a bunch of rich million and billionaires jerk each other around for 4 hours. It isn't even a glorified commercial for the establishment that is the games industry. This is explicitly for Jeff's benefit and him alone. Do you remember the Hideo Kojima worship from a few years back? Jeff knows how everybody responded to him being a bastion of support to Kojima at a time when I'm sure he felt like he didn't have any support at all. It became a sort of unspoken agreement, incentivized at best, or pressured at worst, to announce things at one of Jeff's events. The Game Awards panders to people that Jeff would like to be in bed with, in order to best bolster and support his career. And that's why I believe that now, more than ever, that Shadow of the Erdtree was allowed to be nominated. You can tell me a panel of members of the games industry decide the nominations all you want. You could argue that I'm being uncharitable to Jeff and the rest of the people over at TGA Co., and that he's simply trying to provide a mirror to the face of the gaming community to what we want. But after 3 years of anti-consumer advertising slop, I just can't in good faith think that it's something that they actually care about. And if he did, why would they allow this? Why would awarding FromSoft a Game of the Year nod twice matter so much? Because then every new Dark Souls, Elden Ring, or new projects would be pulled to be announced at one of Jeff's events. Not to mention, I don't think Miyazaki of FromSoft fame cares to be pandered to at all. He likely doesn't particularly care to receive another vapid hollow award such as the Game of the Year as voted on by the bot games media, and would likely prefer that a new game or a game by a smaller developer receive the accolade. Jeff, if Elden Ring wins Game of the Year twice, I'm gonna fucking crash out, man. You denied games like Silent Hill 2, Animal Well, Dragon's Dogma 2, Like a Dragon, Helldivers 2, Tekken 8, or Stellar Blade the chance to be nominated in that slot. All because you thought people would respond well to Shadow of the Erdtree being so exceptional, so beyond conception as a DLC, that it deserved to be nominated as Game of the Year? Before you say it, yeah, Helldivers had a controversy over on Steam. And sure, Stellar Blade is widely divisive in the gaming community because the main character is dressed up like Bayonetta with thigh jiggle physics. But you know what those games did to separate themselves from Shadow of the Erdtree? They're games that don't require you to beat 60% of another game's runtime in order to access, Jeff. I love Elden Ring, and I love Shadow of the Erdtree. Souls fans, don't get it twisted. This was FromSoft hitting it out of the park again. But I've seen some of you guys online agreeing with me here. Where was Phantom Liberty's Game of the Year nod? Blood and Wine, Final Fantasy XIV. Opening the doors to DLC to be nominated for Game of the Year just takes that opportunity away from so many other DLCs that have released in the past, as well as close doors on new developers who possibly could have taken that spot in order to showcase their latest and greatest titles. If this show is meant to put a mirror to the games industry, then the CEOs are just a little too goddamn close to the mirror. Of the titles up for Game of the Year, I suppose I'd be most willing to see Astrobot win, since I haven't smiled so much playing a video game since I was like 6. I like Belatro. I've bought it like 4 times now. Some people have lost themselves in it and have put thousands of hours, and that's cool. I don't know if it should stand next to Final Fantasy VII in 2024 of all years, but I wouldn't be so mad as to curse the awards show. Jeff does that all his own with Gillette ads. Do you guys remember E3? For the younger people watching right now, you might not have gotten the chance to experience the annual E3 coverage and what role it filled within the communalization of the gaming experience. So let me paint a picture. Every year, every game developer and major console manufacturer got together to show us, within the span of a month, what we should expect for the coming calendar year in gaming. This window of time usually coincided with the E3 Games Convention, which invited members of the press to get early impressions on the latest and greatest unreleased titles. Every every dev and console manufacturer would also host a stage show where they'd show off console exclusives, new hardware announcements, and the like. This singularized event, this one window of time, was when every manufacturer knew they needed to show their best of their best on the main stage in order to best sell their supremacy within the gaming space. This made it so only the most relevant of relevant titles were shown, meaning that seldom did you ever feel like you were having your time actively wasted. Unless it was an Ubisoft conference. God damn, Ubisoft, have you just been bad this whole time? If you wanted to dive in further, you could watch IGN or G4 or GameSpot coverage of the show floor, where they invited devs onto smaller stages to showcase other games, not just the juggernauts. This mechanism of the games industry was such a joy to engage with, and became commonly known to me as well as my friends as the gaming Super Bowl. If it was rumored that one of your favorite games was set to get a sequel or a reboot, odds are you'd know within this idealized window of time. How we do things now is effectively the same. It's just infinitely worse. Sony has their own events, and they do like 3 of them a year, and like 2 of them are usually just filled to the brim with absolute garbage announcements. And Nintendo does like 80 of them, with maybe under half of them being worthwhile or interesting. The problem with this subdivisioning of game announcements via digital events is you can't help but feel like they're a waste of time. And they are. There's no incentive to innovate or excel, only to market and spin. So they're essentially just exercises in viral moment chasing or base stirring fellation. Step in the Game Awards and Summer Games Fest. These events are meant to serve as substitutes to the one big event, except they do that only in name. Major game announcements aren't major anymore. They're bought ad time slots by a third party uninterested in what's new, interesting, or even something we'd even want to see. Hence, it really does behoove Jeff to convince and suck up to these developers to better justify his ad shows and get you sitting with bated breath for the 2 actually major E3 tier announcements planted within the show's second and third act. This serves to undermine trust in the show and make you feel like an idiot for assuming that something interesting or engaging would happen within the 4-hour runtime. And even then, the major announcements as of late are mostly just major letdowns. The Game Awards, by and large, are a show of pandering. It'd be one thing if they stood by their laurels and nominated real quality and subversive titles in the name of celebrating an industry, but more often than not, it's just a way to pander to the emotional sensibilities of gamers, as well as the pocketbooks of major corps within the same ecosystem. Shadow of the Erdtree was just a step too far. Gamers understand that this expansion rules, and appreciate it for the scale and quality that it is. Truthfully, Erdtree is exceptional in all regards, especially if you're a fan of these styles of games. The issue isn't determining if it was big enough, good enough, or exceptional enough to get Game of the Year, but simply that by definition it doesn't qualify to be nominated for Game of the Year, and that differentiation is tangibly important. If this was some sort of Leonardo DiCaprio Oscar moment where the man hadn't won an Oscar through his entire career until The Revenant, then sure, I could see giving Shadow of the Erdtree Game of the Year as poetic and sincere from Jeff and company. But the game's already won Game of the Year, Jeff. That's how we got this fucking kid, remember?
Do you think white people should be allowed to say the N-word? Oh, the table's leaving.
Giving it a double pat on the back feels so self-interested and disrespectful to every other game that could have taken that position. I've seen sentiment online as well that remasters and remakes shouldn't even be allowed to be qualified as Game of the Year, instead suggesting a potential new category, Best Remaster and Remake, or Best Remake and Best Remaster separately. This is because they themselves are symptomatic of an industry that doesn't care about originality or making something good. While I agree with the sentiment and cautiously ask where you were when every Resident Evil game was being nominated, I must disagree by virtue of the nuances that I feel that remakes are able to accomplish. I hope to one day find the motivation and mental health to make a proper Silent Hill 2 video, regardless of reception, opportunity for virality, or anything else. It'd be a video for me to parse my thoughts and feelings about the game, as well as putting more praise into the world for it. But a natural extension of this idea disqualifies Silent Hill 2 for possibly being nominated for a Game of the Year, and that's painful to consider. The fact it was denied the chance to be in the spot Shadow of the Erdtree occupies is painful. It's not a perfect game, and does suffer from over-bloating of sections, but it is undeniably everything that made the original the most plagiarized horror game of all time, and some. Silent Hill 2 from Bloober Team manages to carefully expand upon the ideas presented by Team Silent without overriding the vision, ideas, and spirit behind the original. It's like drawing more stuff around the bounds of the Mona Lisa, while also painting on it itself, and having everyone agree that what was done to it was both respectful to the original vision of Da Vinci, but also enhancing what the Mona Lisa meant to your 68-year-old high school art teacher. It's a Herculean task that would have, and probably should have, ended in disaster, that instead excels in nearly every way conceivable, legit enhancing the original. That's a milestone and feat in game design. This is the sort of stuff that the Game Awards used to highlight and celebrate as an achievement of the medium, especially when the developers faced pushback for years and even days leading up to the release of the game by fans and a gaming community that was unconvinced that the same studio that gave us this Germa clip
Tomorrow morning before school, you're gonna be mad because you didn't take a bath.
could actually pull off remaking one of the most important horror games, and by extension, one of the greatest video games ever made. That was the Game Awards Jeff Keighley felt the industry needed, as opposed to the walking, talking advertisement it serves to be now. So what happens if Shadow of the Erdtree wins Game of the Year? We acknowledge that the work FromSoft put into the expansion was both above and beyond anything we'd expected, and patiently wait for what the studio puts out next, while we set fucking car fires in the parking lot of a Target and burn out the infrastructure of the entire games industry. Thanks for watching. What are you hoping gets the win at the Game Awards, and why isn't it Shadow of the Erdtree? Let me know down in the comments below. I've been Arky, this has been my 2 cents. I hope you're keeping alive well. Peace.